For years, I endured the silence. And it wasn't the peaceful kind of silence, the kind that lulls you to sleep or comforts your heart. It was a heavy silence, made of averted gazes, words that never came, doors that closed slowly so as not to seem aggressive. But that always hurt. My name is Elena. I am 78 years old, and this is the story of how, even surrounded by luxury, I lived in a room with a view of abandonment. Outside, everything was impeccable. A 2-story house in one of Miami's most expensive neighborhoods. Grass cut with the precision of a ruler, cars so shiny they reflected the sky. From the outside, the world saw a perfect family. But inside was a different story. The walls of that house held a kind of cold that not even the Florida summer could melt. My room was on the ground floor next to the laundry room. When they put me there, they said it would be more practical, but it was like being pushed into the basement, only with flowery curtains to disguise it. The window faced a brick wall, no landscape, no sun, just a daily reminder that no matter how much I had loved, cared for, or sewn for that family, I was now just another old piece of furniture taking up space. On the morning of that day, Isabella was agitated. She was rushing from one side to the other, organizing a party. It was for one of David's partners, my son. Everything had to be perfect. The house smelled of expensive flowers and nervousness. I offered to help with the arrangements. She smiled, but not with her lips, with her teeth. It would be better if you stayed in your room today, Donna Elena. Just as a precaution. You know how these events are, don't you? I knew. It was the same message as always. Don't show up. Don't get in the way. While she was arranging the crystal glasses, I took the opportunity to clean a small corner of the living room bookshelf. There was my favorite photo, me and my husband Jorge, on a random Sunday, having coffee on the porch. It was the day he called me my light. It was just a simple frame, dark wood, the glass already a bit opaque. But to me, it was everything. Isabella passed by with a duster in her hands. Quick, precise, as if cleaning the past. Unintentionally, or very intentionally, she bumped into the bookshelf. The photo fell. The glass shattered on the floor. I crouched down quickly, my heart pounding. Before I could pick it up, she grumbled, "These old things just take up space. It's past time to get rid of them." And she threw the frame in the trash, as if it were any old piece of paper. I didn't say anything. Not a single word. I carefully picked up the shards, cutting my finger without realizing it. I took everything to my room. There, in my golden exile, I held that photo against my chest and felt the weight of all the years I had remained silent. This could be your mother's story, or yours. Leave a like and comment where you are watching from. Now, continue with me. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked. Out the window. Bricks, only bricks, as if the world had ended outside. I heard laughter from upstairs, the sound of clinking glasses, and I thought, how is it possible to be so close to family and, at the same time, so distant? The blood was still slowly trickling from my finger, but I didn't even care. The pain of the cut was small compared to what I felt inside. It wasn't just about the photo. It was about what it represented. My last link to Jorge, to that time when I was seen, touched, loved, to that version of me who laughed out loud and made dresses with embroidered flowers. That night, my room seemed smaller. The fan spun on the ceiling, making a monotonous sound that reminded me of the passing of empty hours. I heard Isabella smiling, charming the guests, and I wondered, did David know? Did he see? Or was I really going crazy, as she insinuated? I heard footsteps on the stairs. I thought it was her, coming to complain about something. But no, it was David. He had forgotten some documents and had come back earlier than expected. When he passed through the living room, he stopped. He didn't see me, but he saw the trash, the broken frame, the shards still glittering under the artificial light. He frowned but kept walking. He went up 2 steps, stopped, and came back down, as if something was pulling him, as if something inside him finally said, "Go see your mother." My bedroom door opened slowly. The light from the hallway flooded the space, revealing my shrunken face in the darkness. I was holding the damaged photo against my chest. I was crying silently, as I always did. David didn't say anything right away. He just stood there, as if seeing me for the first time. "Is everything okay, Mom?" My voice came out low, almost a whisper. "It's just an old frame, son." He came closer, slowly, as if walking on invisible shards. He sat down beside me. The room, which was once a prison, became a refuge. And there, for the first time in years, I felt that maybe someone was beginning to hear my silence. I wasn't born into this silence. On the contrary, I was raised in a noisy house, full of voices, the smell of brewed coffee, and the footsteps of running children. I was the oldest of 5 siblings. I grew up in Havana, in a cramped 2-story house, but where everyone called each other by name and no one went to sleep without a goodnight kiss. After I married Jorge, we came to the United States. We started from scratch. He as a mechanic, I with my, sewing machine. I made dresses, curtains, school uniforms. In time, we opened our little shop, and it was there that David grew up, sleeping under the counter, playing with colorful scraps of fabric. But life went on. Jorge died early in a car accident, and the shop, over time, had to close. David went to study business, graduated with honors, married Isabella, and gradually, my presence became too small for the grand world he was building. I understand. I really do. It's not easy to mix past and future in the same house. But there's a difference between adapting and being erased. When I moved here, it was with the promise that it would be temporary. Just until you recover from the surgery, they said. That was 4 years ago. Since then, they never again spoke of helping me get my own space back. My room became my world. And Isabella? Well, Isabella soon made it clear that I was an inconvenience she tolerated only out of politeness. In the beginning, she would invite me to have lunch at the table with them, but always with impatient looks, as if counting the minutes until the conversation ended. Then came the jokes. "You've already told that story 1,000 times, Donna Elena." Or, "Nobody uses those old words anymore." Little by little, I learned to keep quiet, to just observe. There was a day when my friend Carmencita wanted to visit me. She was a sweet lady from church. I said yes, that I would be happy. But when Isabella found out, she said the house was under renovation and that it wasn't the best time. There was never a renovation. There were only excuses. And then came the small humiliations, hidden in gestures, in the way she moved my glass when I left it in the living room, or how she sighed when I asked if I could turn on the television to watch the news. One day, I needed to buy some medicine. I asked her to stop by the bank. That's when I discovered that my account was blocked. She had put everything on a joint debit to make it easier. It was at this point that my anxiety began to grow. I would wake up scared in the middle of the night, thinking they had forgotten me there. I started talking to Jorge in my thoughts, asking if he saw me, if he saw what I had become. Sometimes I slept with one of his shirts, still kept in a box. David. He was always good, but distracted, blinded by the lights of the life he had built. He would ask me if everything was okay, and I would say yes, because I didn't want to bother him, because I was afraid of causing a fight, afraid of being thrown into a nursing home, as Isabella threatened in whispers whenever David left. Once, I dropped a cup. I was washing the dishes I had used alone for breakfast. She appeared out of nowhere, looked at the shards, and said, "Is this how it's going to be now? Breaking things until there's nothing left?" I was trembling, unable to answer. I just cleaned it up quickly and went to my room. I cried softly, ashamed even of myself. Everything changed. After that party night, after David saw me there, sitting with the broken photo, he stayed with me for a while. He didn't say much. He just held my hand. And that was everything. For the first time in years, someone touched me without rush, without contempt, just with affection. The next day, he came to have coffee with me. He brought Cuban bread and strong coffee, like in the days of the shop. I didn't know what to say. Neither did he. We just sat there, sharing silences that this time didn't hurt. But Isabella noticed, and she didn't like it. She started ignoring me with more force. She began to lock the cupboard where she kept the groceries. She said it was for security. She started checking if David was really going to my room. Once she even dropped a hint. It's funny how old women know how to manipulate. David tried to balance everything, but I saw it in his eyes. Something was changing. He began to ask more direct questions. Are you happy here, Mom? Do you want to tell me something? And I hesitated, because I still felt that any word could turn into a weapon. One Sunday, he proposed taking me to the park. He said he wanted to talk. Isabella suddenly appeared with a stomachache. David canceled the outing. The next day, she was bubbly again. It was all so strategic, so cruel. But then came the unexpected gesture. He bought a security camera kit. He said it was for my protection. He installed one in the room, and I was scared, afraid that he was trying to control me too. But he said, it's just to make sure you're safe when I'm not home. Nothing more. And it was through that camera that the truth, finally, found a way through. One afternoon, while I was folding some clothes, Isabella entered, furious. She started to shout quietly with that cutting voice. You think you're going to make me the villain? Go on. Cry to your son. Let's see who he chooses when I threaten to leave. And then, the phrase that killed me inside. You want drama? You'll end up in the worst nursing home in the city. One where not even the rats go in. I didn't cry. I didn't defend myself. I just looked at her. And in that look, I think she saw that something had broken for good. Not in me, but in the control she thought she had. David saw everything on his phone while he was at work, and in that very instant, the silence that suffocated me began to crumble. David left work without telling anyone. His face, captured by an office security camera, showed something I had never seen before. Contained fury, raw disappointment. In the car, he held the phone with the recording paused on the frozen image of Isabella pointing her finger at me. He couldn't hear anything else. The sound of the city seemed distant, as if the whole world had fallen silent along with me. At home, the music from the party still echoed in recent memory, but now there was only the ticking of the kitchen clock and the sound of the key turning in the door. Isabella appeared in the living room, her face made up, her hair impeccable, and a rehearsed smile on her lips. Honey, you're back early. Was everything okay at work? She extended her arms to hug him. David did not reciprocate. He took his phone out of his pocket. He pressed play, and he turned the screen towards her. Her smile slowly faded. First the eyes, then the lips. The image showed everything. Every cruel word, every cold gesture, every threat. You're misinterpreting everything. She was being dramatic. Isabella tried to laugh, tried to feign surprise, but her voice faltered. David didn't answer. He just walked towards the hallway, his steps heavy. She followed him, shouting softly, David, please, it's your mother. She's not well. She makes things up. Do you really think a camera will show you everything? He stopped at my bedroom door. He took a deep breath. He knocked lightly. Mom, it's me. I was sitting, still with the clothes in my hands. I had heard the door, the shouts, the silence that followed. When he entered, his eyes were red. I saw, he said. My hands started to tremble. I thought he was angry, that somehow she had convinced him it was all my fault. But then he knelt in front of me. He held my hands. I'm sorry. Forgive me for everything, for not seeing, for not listening, for letting you live like this. Inside this prison. My throat tightened. I tried to speak, but I could only let out a sigh. The pain of so many years flowed out in silence. My eyes filled with tears. I didn't know if I was crying from relief, fear, or exhaustion. He hugged me. A tight hug, full of guilt and love mixed together. For the first time since Jorge was gone, I felt that someone truly saw me, that I was still a mother, that I was still someone. Isabella shouted from the hallway. Are you really going to choose her? Are you going to throw everything away for a lying old woman? David stood up, still with the phone in his hand. Pack your things. You have until tomorrow to get out of this house. She tried to approach him. "You're going to kick me out because of a recording? Because of her?" He didn't shout. He just spoke firmly. "It's not because of her. It's because of me. Because I'm tired of living blind. Because I looked at my mother today and saw all the pain I let accumulate in her." Isabella didn't answer. She turned and went to her room, slamming the door. David came back to me. He looked at me with affection. "From now on, everything is going to change." He helped me up. He took me to the kitchen. He prepared tea, the way Jorge used to, with honey and lemon. With each gesture, he rebuilt a piece of me that had been erased. Are you enjoying this story? Leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Now we continue with the video. In the following days, the house became a field of silence. Isabella left without looking back. She left everything: jewelry, expensive clothes, perfumes. But she also left a void, not of absence, but of peace. David began to redecorate my room. He replaced the window with one that faced the garden. He painted the walls a light yellow. He bought a comfortable armchair. "Here, you will sew again," he said. I trembled as I touched the threads, but at the same time, I felt like I was coming home. He canceled his business trips. He started cooking with me, listening to my stories, even if they were repeated, asking about Jorge, about Havana, about my youth. One afternoon, he brought a box. Inside were all the old photos I thought had been thrown away. He had found them stored in a closet, covered by plastic bags. "I want you to tell me who is who. I want to know your story, Mom." I started with a black and white photo from my wedding. Here. This was when he called me my light. And then we cried together. We cried for everything that was lost, for everything that was silenced, for everything that could still be rebuilt. The changes began slowly. First, the smell of the house. Before, it was just strong. Perfume and furniture wax. Now, it was the smell of bread coming out of the oven, of fresh coffee, of coconut soap on the clothesline. Life, which before seemed caged in a soulless palace, began to breathe. David made a point of completely renovating my room. He replaced the wallpaper with a warm peach tone, put up white linen curtains, and a shelf where we organized my balls of yarn and fabrics. "Now it's the most beautiful room in the house, Mom," he would say. And it really was. Every morning, he would come down to have coffee with me. Sometimes he would bring a sweet bread from the bakery. Other times he would make it himself. We would sit at the kitchen table, the same one where I used to eat alone, and talk like two old friends rediscovering time. One night he asked me, "Would you like to teach sewing again? To other ladies? Maybe widows, like you were when you arrived here?" My eyes lit up. It was as if, after so long, someone was asking me to exist again. We started with a small group, 2 neighbors and a friend from church. They would sit with me on the back porch where we hung a hammock. As we sewed, we talked about life, about our children, about the longings that still hurt even after years. We laughed, we cried, and we felt alive. David installed a ramp in the garden, adapted the house, and gradually we started receiving more visitors. Widows, ladies abandoned by their children, women forgotten by the rush of the world. Here, they found a shoulder to cry on, a hot tea, and a needle to rebuild their stories. With the money from the sale of the assets Isabella left behind, David created the Sewing Light Foundation, a project that welcomes elderly women in situations of emotional abandonment. The house, once a symbol of empty luxury, became a refuge of dignity. I spent my days embroidering names on the foundation's towels. Each name was a rescued story. One afternoon, while embroidering the name of Donna Mercedes, David sat next to me and said, "Mom, if I ever have a daughter, I want her to be like you, strong, sweet, and who never stopped loving, even when no one saw." I cried, not from sadness, but because it was good, finally, to be seen with so much love. Gradually, David began to give lectures on the rights of the elderly. He visited nursing homes, talked with caregivers, brought donations. I thought my mission was to grow financially, but my mission was to take care of the one who taught me what love is, he would say. The ladies who came to us brought similar stories: children who disappeared, grandchildren who forgot. Here they rediscovered their faith in humanity. And I rediscovered myself. Sometimes I still find myself looking at the wall where I once only saw bricks. Now, there is a garden. David planted yellow roses, Jorge's favorites. Every morning I talk to him in my thoughts. I tell him how David has changed, how our home is full of life. One late afternoon, one of the ladies asked me, "Elena, what gave you the strength to go on, even in silence for so long?" I thought, and I answered, "Love. It never dies. It can be buried by screams, by abandonment, by contempt. But it endures, like a quiet root waiting for the rain. This house is now a home. Not just mine, but for many. There is laughter, the sounds of sewing machines, the footsteps of people coming and going. And above all, there is respect, because those who have been erased understand the value of every lit light. For my 81st birthday, David prepared a surprise for me, a mural with photos of all the women who have passed through here. In the center, a new frame, with the same photo of me and Jorge, now restored. Underneath, he wrote, "To the woman who sowed love in the silence and taught the world to listen. It was the best gift of my life." Have you ever done a kind gesture that changed a life? Leave a heart if you believe that love is more powerful than any wealth. Subscribe for more stories of second chances. Comment, "Love has no price," if you also believe in human kindness. 3 years have passed. Today, the house looks different. The walls are filled with pictures made by the ladies who have passed through here. They are portraits, embroideries, memories. Each object carries a story, a rescue. The sound that dominates the environment is no longer the uncomfortable silence, but the laughter of afternoons filled with tea, cake, and conversations that heal. I am 81 years old. My hair is even whiter, my hands slower, but inside me there is a lightness I never imagined feeling again. I no longer carry the fear of being forgotten, because now, every day, someone calls me Grandma Elena. The Sewing Light Foundation has grown. We now have 2 floors dedicated to care. On the ground floor, a sewing room with brand new machines. On the floor above, simple but loving rooms. We receive women from various parts of the city. Some are brought by neighbors, others by volunteers, but they all arrive with the same look, that mix of shame and hope. David remains at the forefront of everything. He quit his job at his old company and began to dedicate himself fully to the cause. He said he had never felt so fulfilled, and I see it in the sparkle of his eyes. When he walks through the house, he is called "my son" by dozens of different voices. Once a week, he organizes conversation circles with grandchildren and grandparents, young people who have learned to listen, to care, to value. And among these young people, someone special emerged, Mariana, a social worker who came to help at the foundation and ended up helping David to love again. They got married in the garden of the house with all of us present. It was a simple ceremony, full of flowers made of fabric and promises spoken with the eyes. I carried the rings, with trembling hands, but a firm heart. Today, I have a great-granddaughter, Clara. When she runs through the house, with her curly hair and curious eyes, I see Jorge, smiling. And I think, who would have thought that from that dark room with a view of bricks, such a light-filled home would be born? Clara loves to sew. She already has her own box of threads, and whenever she finishes an embroidery, she runs to me saying, "Look, Grandma, I did it just like you." And I smile, because I know the cycle is closing, but this time, with love. Yes, there was pain. Yes, there was silence, but there was also courage. There was reconciliation, and above all, there was listening. Because when an elderly woman is heard, the whole world learns to love better. And if you've come this far, know this: it's never too late to turn pain into care. It's never too late to sow a new beginning.